Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. Music is my life, you know?
Andrea Bocelli, the blind tenor whose voice has moved 80 million people worldwide to tears, has conquered every stage from La Scala to Madison Square Garden. But at 25 years old, in 1983, he was nobody, a blind law student singing in piano bars for spare change, a man who'd lost his sight in the most tragic way imaginable, a dreamer told by every music conservatory in Italy that his voice wasn't good enough. The world didn't know Andrea Bocelli yet, and Andrea Bocelli was drowning in darkness, literal and metaphorical. This is the devastating story of a boy who went blind at 12, who spent his teenage years fighting depression and isolation, who was rejected by the Conservatorio di Musica Luigi Cherubini in Florence for having too many defects in his technique. At 25, he was singing for 200,000 lira, roughly $150 a night in smoky bars while studying law at the University of Pisa. A backup plan because everyone told him music was impossible. But behind his extraordinary gift lies a story not glamorous, but brutal. If Andrea Bocelli has ever made you believe in the power of the human spirit, hit like as tribute to his refusal to let darkness win. This is the story of a man who lost his eyes but found his voice, who was rejected by the classical music establishment, and who spent years invisible before the world finally heard him. September 22, 1958, Lajatico, a tiny village in Tuscany, Italy. Andrea Bocelli was born into a farming family, marked not by celebration, but by worry. His mother, Edie, was told during pregnancy that her baby would be born with disabilities. Doctors recommended abortion. Edie refused. Andrea was born with congenital glaucoma, impaired vision from birth. He could see shapes, light, shadows, but the world was always blurry. His father, Alessandro Bocelli, and mother ran a small farm and sold farm equipment to survive. Money was tight. Lajatico was remote. Population 1,300. No opportunities. No culture beyond the local church. But Andrea heard music everywhere. At 6 years old, he began piano lessons. His parents sacrificed to pay for them. He learned by ear more than by sight, memorizing pieces after hearing them once. Then came the opera. At 7, Andrea heard Franco Corelli sing on a recording. The tenor's voice was thunder and honey, power and beauty. Andrea told his mother, "I want to sing like that." But life had other plans. 1970. Andrea was 12 years old, playing goalkeeper in a school soccer match in Lajatico. A routine game, a routine play. Then everything changed. The ball hit him directly in the face. Blood everywhere. His already fragile eyes couldn't withstand the trauma. A brain hemorrhage followed. The doctors tried everything. Multiple surgeries, experimental treatments. Nothing worked. By the end of 1970, Andrea Bocelli was completely blind, 12 years old. Darkness, forever. It is heartbreaking when childhood ends not gradually, but violently. When the world you barely saw is stolen entirely, Andrea fell into depression. He refused to leave his room for months. Music became his only escape. He sang, constantly, obsessively. His parents enrolled him at the Istituto Statale Cico Augusto Romagnoli in Rome, a boarding school for blind children. He lived away from home, learning Braille, navigating a world without sight. But he never stopped singing. By 1976, at 18, Andrea had learned piano, flute, saxophone, trumpet, trombone, guitar, and drums. He'd also developed an operatic tenor voice. His dream was clear: become a professional opera singer. He auditioned for the Conservatorio di Musica Luigi Cherubini in Florence. They rejected him. Too many technical flaws, they said. His voice was powerful but undisciplined. His blindness made stage performance impractical. The conservatory that had trained Pietro Mascagni and other Italian legends told Andrea Bocelli he wasn't good enough. So he enrolled at the University of Pisa to study law, a practical choice, a safe choice. His parents were relieved. Singing was a beautiful hobby, but law meant security. At Pisa, Andrea studied diligently, memorized entire textbooks in Braille, Graduated with his law degree in 1986, but every night he sang. Piano bars in Pisa, restaurants in Florence, anywhere that would pay. At 25, in 1983, Andrea was earning 100,000 to 300,000 lira per night, $150 to $200, singing popular songs and classical arias for tourists and locals who barely listened. He was anonymous, a curiosity, the blind singer in the corner. The world saw a law student with a nice voice. But the truth was different. Andrea Bocelli was dying inside. Every note he sang in those bars was a prayer, a desperate plea to be heard, to matter, to escape the life of mediocrity that blindness had sentenced him to. He applied to study with tenor Franco Corelli, his childhood hero. In 1983, Corelli accepted him as a private student. This was hope, real hope, but private lessons were expensive. Andrea worked as a court-appointed defense attorney and continued singing in bars to afford them. By 1985, he was 27, still singing in piano bars, still unknown, still fighting. What few people know is how close he came to giving up music entirely. In 1987, at 29, Andrea married Enrica Cinzotti. They had met in a piano bar where he sang. She was 17. He was a struggling singer-lawyer with no prospects. Their first son, Amos, was born in 1995. Marriage brought responsibility, stability, fear. Andrea was 30 years old with a wife, a child coming, and a law practice. That paid the bills. Music was slipping away. The tragedy of Andrea Bocelli at 25 wasn't a single moment. It was the accumulation of a lifetime of darkness. Let's go back to 1970. Andrea was 12 years old. The soccer ball hit his face. The hemorrhage destroyed what little vision remained. But the physical blindness was only part of the devastation. What followed was years of isolation, depression, suicidal thoughts. Andrea has spoken about this period. The darkness wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. He couldn't see his mother's face anymore, couldn't read books, couldn't navigate the world independently. At 14, he contemplated ending his life. Music saved him. Literally, he sang to survive, to feel something, to prove he still existed. Fast forward to 1983. Andrea was 25. He'd been rejected by music conservatories, told his voice was flawed, told opera was impossible for a blind man. He sang in piano bars where drunk tourists talked over him, where people requested Frank Sinatra songs instead of Puccini arias. He earned barely enough to survive. Every night, he'd return to his small apartment in Pisa, exhausted and invisible. The world saw nothing, and Andrea felt nothing but the weight of unfulfilled dreams. There's a specific devastation in having a gift nobody wants, in being talented but unrecognized, in singing your heart out while the world ignores you. That was Andrea Bocelli at 25. Then came the relationships. His first serious love before Enrica had ended badly. The woman couldn't handle his blindness, the dependency, the limitations. She left. It is heartbreaking when someone looks at your disability and sees only burden. Andrea threw himself into singing, into law, into anything that made him feel useful. At 25, he was singing 6 nights a week in bars, studying law during the day, taking voice lessons with Luciano Batterini in Pisa whenever he could afford them. He slept for hours a night. His voice suffered from overuse. His body was exhausted. But he couldn't stop. Not because he loved it, but because stopping meant admitting defeat, admitting the conservatory was right, admitting blindness had won. Behind the voice the world would eventually worship was a 25-year-old man on the edge of collapse, singing in the darkness, both literal and metaphorical. What few people know is that Andrea suffered from severe performance anxiety during this period. Despite his talent, he was terrified on stage. Blind performers face unique challenges: spatial awareness, connecting with audiences without seeing them, navigating stages without sight. He fell multiple times, walked into microphone stands, missed cues. Each mistake reinforced the conservatory's rejection. You're not ready. You'll never be ready. At 25, Andrea Bocelli was trapped. Too talented to quit, too rejected to succeed. And the darkness, the physical darkness he'd lived with since 12, became a metaphor for his entire life. Invisible, unheard, lost. But here's what makes this story miraculous. Andrea Bocelli didn't know it at 25. But salvation was 9 years away. In 1992, at 34, he would send a demo tape to Italian rock star Zucchero Fornaciari. Zucchero was searching for a tenor to record Miserere with Luciano Pavarotti. He needed a placeholder voice for the demo. Andrea's tape arrived. Zucchero listened, wept. When Pavarotti heard the demo, he asked, "Who is this singer?" Zucchero replied, "A blind lawyer from Tuscany." Pavarotti said, "Don't use me. Use him." Everything changed. By 1994, Andrea had signed with Insieme, Sugar Music. By 1995, he released Bocelli, his debut album, and sang Con Ti Partiro at the Sanremo Music Festival. The song became a global phenomenon. By 1998, Andrea Bocelli had recorded with Celine Dion, performed for the Pope, and sold 15 million albums. Today, at 66 years old, Andrea Bocelli has sold over 90 million records worldwide. His net worth is estimated at $100 million. He's performed at the Olympics, World Cup, and for presidents and royalty. But none of that existed at 25. At 25, he was nobody. Today, at 66, Andrea Bocelli lives in Forte dei Marmi, Tuscany, with his second wife, Veronica Berti, whom he married in 2014. They have one daughter, Virginia, born in 2012. He also has two sons from his first marriage, Amos and Matteo, both musicians. His net worth is estimated at $100 million. He tours constantly, 50 to 60 concerts per year across the world. He founded the Andrea Bocelli Foundation in 2011, which supports projects for the visually impaired and disadvantaged communities. He's recorded 17 studio albums, collaborated with Ed Sheeran, Ariana Grande, and Dua Lipa. At 66, Andrea Bocelli has achieved everything the conservatory said was impossible. But he still remembers 25, the piano bars, the rejection, the darkness. He says those years taught him humility, persistence, faith. Without the struggle, he says, the voice would be empty. At 25, Andrea Bocelli was blind, broke, and invisible. Proof that your darkest hour often comes just before dawn. From La Giudico to the world's greatest stages, from piano bars to Carnegie Hall, from 200,000 lira per night to a $100 million legacy. The man who went blind at 12 became the voice that helped millions see beauty. The student rejected by the conservatory became the world's most beloved tenor. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Andrea Bocelli's voice reminded you that obstacles are not endpoints. They're preparation for miracles. At 25, Andrea was singing in the darkness. Today, his voice is light itself.